There is a specific kind of silence that exists only in the middle of a loud room. It is the moment when the music, the laughter, and the overlapping layers of conversation begin to blur into a singular, vibrating wall of noise. You stand there, a glass in hand, watching the mouths move, yet the words feel like they are drifting away, untethered from any real meaning. It is not necessarily a hatred of people, but a profound, aching fatigue of the mask. For some, a social gathering is not a playground. It is a high-stakes performance where the script has been lost and the lights are far too bright. It is the quiet realization that while everyone else seems to be breathing the air of the room, you are merely holding your breath, waiting for the permission to finally exhale in the solitude of your own skin. The exhaustion of a social gathering rarely begins at the front door. For many, it starts days or even weeks earlier, with the soft chime of a notification or the arrival of an invitation that feels less like a gesture of inclusion and more like a summons. This is the anticipatory wait, a psychological phenomenon where the mind begins to spend energy on an event that hasn't yet occurred. While others might look at a calendar and see a highlight, you see a looming task. You begin to calculate the cost. You measure the hours of preparation, the duration of the performance, and the days of silent recovery that will inevitably be required afterward. It is a peculiar kind of tax that the world asks you to pay simply for existing within its structures. The threshold is not just a physical doorway, it is a psychological boundary. Standing on one side of it, you are whole, private, and unobserved. On the other side lies the public square, a place where your edges must be softened and your internal landscape must be hidden to make room for the expectations of others. We often mistake this hesitation for shyness or social anxiety, but frequently it is something much deeper and more quiet. It is the realization that to enter the room, you must leave a part of yourself behind. You must curate your thoughts, modulate your voice, and prepare the standard answers to the standard questions. How have you been? What are you working on? The weight comes from knowing that the honest answers, I am tired, I am searching, I am overwhelmed, are rarely the ones the room is prepared to hold. As the hour of the event approaches, the body begins its own silent protest. The heart might quicken, not with excitement, but with a primal sense of overstimulation. This is the simulation phase. In your mind, you are already there. You are navigating the small talk, managing the eye contact, and searching for the exit strategy before you've even put on your shoes. It is a grueling mental rehearsal. By the time you actually reach the threshold of the gathering, you have already lived the evening 1,000 times in your head. You arrive not fresh and ready to engage, but already depleted, having spent your social currency on the mere thought of being present. There is a specific sorrow in this threshold. It is the feeling of being wrong for wanting to stay home. We live in a culture that treats gregariousness as the default setting for a healthy human being. We are told that putting ourselves out there is the cure for every ailment, and that solitude is a symptom of something broken. And so, the weight of the threshold is doubled by the weight of guilt. You are not only tired of the upcoming noise, you are tired of yourself for being tired. You watch the ease with which others cross that line, how they shed their coats and dive into the sea of voices without a second thought, and you wonder why your own skin feels so thin. But perhaps the threshold is not an obstacle to be overcome, but a signal to be honored. The dread is a messenger. It tells you that your internal world is vast and that the energy required to bridge the gap between your private depth and the public surface is immense. To feel the weight of the threshold is to acknowledge that your presence is not a cheap commodity. It is a finite resource. When you finally turn the handle and step inside, the click of the door behind you marks the beginning of a marathon. You are now on. The world is watching, and the quiet room you left behind feels like a distant, fading dream. You are in the light now, but your heart remains in the hallway, still longing for the permission to simply be. To understand why a room full of people feels like a battlefield, one must look at the armor we were taught to build before we even knew we were at war. For many who find social gatherings abrasive, the discomfort isn't a flaw of personality. It is the friction of an old survival mechanism. We call it the mask. It is that polished, agreeable, and slightly hollow version of yourself that takes over the moment the doorbell rings. It smiles when it isn't happy, it laughs when it isn't amused, and it nods in agreement to opinions it finds exhausting. But the mask was not born out of thin air. It was constructed, brick by brick, in the formative years when we first learned what it cost to belong. In the architecture of the human psyche, the need for attachment is our most primal instinct. As children, we are keen observers of the social climate of our homes and classrooms. We quickly learn which parts of us are celebrated and which parts cause the adults around us to sigh, look away, or demand more. Perhaps you were the child who was told you were too sensitive, too quiet, or too much. To survive, you learned to edit. You learned that being easy or entertaining was the currency of safety. This is where the mask begins, not as an act of deception, but as an act of devotion to the people we needed to love us. We traded our authenticity for harmony, and in doing so, we built a self that is perfectly designed for everyone's comfort but our own. Now, as an adult, a social gathering triggers this ancient blueprint. The moment you enter a crowd, the architecture of the mask activates automatically. Your brain scans the room, not for connection, but for expectations. You subconsciously ask, who do I need to be for this person? How much of my true self must I hide to keep this conversation moving? This is why social gatherings are so draining. It is not the talking that tires you. It is the constant, high-speed internal translation. You are translating your complex, nuanced, and perhaps somber internal reality into a simplified, palatable version that fits the social script. It is the labor of a diplomat in a foreign land, perpetually on guard, making sure no undiplomatic truth slips through the cracks. The most exhausting thing you can do is be a shadow of yourself, trying to fit into a shape that was never meant to hold you. There is a profound loneliness in being liked for a mask you are wearing. You might spend 3 hours at a party being charming, well-spoken, and the life of the party, only to drive home feeling an immense, hollow ache in your chest. The world saw you, but you were never seen. The mask received the compliments. The mask received the invitations. The mask received the warmth. The real you, the one who is tired, the one who finds the music too loud, the one who wants to talk about the terrifying beauty of mortality instead of real estate, remained hidden in the basement of your own mind. You are lonely, not because you are alone, but because you are performing. This chapter of our lives is about recognizing that the mask, while it served us once, has become a cage. We hate social gatherings because they are the places where the cage feels the tightest. Every fine thanks is a bar on that cage. Every forced smile is a lock. The architecture is sturdy and well-built, designed to withstand the judgment of others, but it lacks windows. There is no air inside. When we begin to understand that our hatred of gatherings is actually a protest of the soul against this performance, the guilt starts to lift. We realize we don't hate people. We hate the person we feel forced to become when we are with them. While we often search for the roots of social exhaustion in our past or our personalities, sometimes the answer is much closer to the surface. It is written into the very wiring of our nerves. For those who find gatherings unbearable, the experience is often less of a psychological struggle and more of a biological siege. We tend to speak of introversion as a choice or a temperament, but for many, it is a matter of sensory processing. Your brain is not simply quiet, it is an instrument tuned to a frequency so high that the rest of the world sounds like feedback. In a crowded room, you are not just hearing voices, you are processing a symphony of chaos that your biology was never designed to filter. In a typical social setting, most people possess a sensory gatekeepers, a neurological mechanism that decides which stimuli are important and which can be ignored. They can focus on the person in front of them while the clinking of glasses, the humming of the air conditioner, and the flickering of a television in the corner fade into a soft gray background. But for the highly sensitive, that gatekeeper is absent. Every sound arrives with equal urgency. The scraping of a chair is as loud as the secret being whispered. The scent of a heavy perfume is as demanding as the question you've just been asked. This is sensory flooding, a state where the brain's processing power is pushed to its absolute limit. In psychophysics, Weber-Fechner's law suggests that our perception of a stimulus is logarithmic. For the socially sensitive, however, the K, the constant, feels significantly higher. The intensity of the environment doesn't just add up, it multiplies. This creates a state of hypervigilance. Because your brain cannot filter the noise, it treats everything as a potential threat or a vital piece of information. Your nervous system enters a fight-or-flight state while you are ostensibly just standing by a snack table. This is why you might find yourself fixating on the ceiling fan or the pattern of the rug. Your brain is desperately searching for a still point to anchor itself against the overwhelming tide of data. It is not that the world is too much, it is that your windows are too wide, and the wind is blowing through every one of them at once. This biological reality explains the sudden social wall many people hit. You might be enjoying a conversation one moment, and in the next, it feels as though a shutter has been slammed down. Your words become clumsy, your eyes lose focus, and a desperate physical need to find a dark, quiet corner takes over. This isn't a mood swing, it is neural fatigue. Your prefrontal cortex, exhausted by the effort of managing the sensory deluge, is effectively shutting down to protect itself. When we understand this, we can stop blaming our weakness. You aren't failing to be social. Your body is successfully preventing a total system crash. There is a quiet, persistent conflict that lives in the heart of the socially reluctant. The tension between the mirror and the shadow. The mirror represents our deep biological craving for reflection, the need to see ourselves in the eyes of another, to be acknowledged, and to belong. We are, after all, a social species, wired for the safety of the tribe. But the shadow represents the part of us that feels fundamentally other, the part that recognizes that the cost of being reflected by the crowd is often the erasure of our true essence. When you stand in a social gathering, these two forces pull at you from opposite directions, creating a friction that feels like a slow-burning fever. This conflict is most visible in the guilt of the ghost. You are at the party, but you are already planning your disappearance. The mirror tells you that you should stay, that to leave early is to be difficult, antisocial, or stuck up. It shows you the reflection of how you should look, happy, engaged, and effortless. But the shadow is whispering a different truth. It reminds you that the version of you currently standing in the room is a phantom, a curated ghost that doesn't actually exist. The shadow feels the growing distance between the words you are saying and the thoughts you are thinking. It is the part of you that realizes that the more you connect with the room, the more you are disconnecting from yourself. We often experience this as a deep sense of unbelonging, even among friends. You might look around a dinner table and see people you genuinely love, yet still feel an impenetrable glass wall between you and them. This is the shadow's work. It is not trying to be cruel, it is trying to protect your authenticity. It knows that your social self is often a performance of compliance. The shadow is the part of you that refuses to be marketable. It is the messy, complex, and unedited core of your being that finds the polite exchange of pleasantries to be a form of spiritual starvation. It doesn't want to talk about the weather. It wants to talk about why we are all so afraid of the dark. The loneliest place in the world is not in solitude, but in the middle of a celebration where you are pretending to be someone you are not. This inner conflict creates a cycle of shame. When we are home, we feel the pull of the mirror, longing for the warmth of others and fearing that our isolation will eventually turn into a permanent exile. We promise ourselves that next time we will be different. We will be better at people. But the moment we are in the crowd, the shadow rises up in protest. The noise feels sharper, the light feels colder, and the effort of maintaining the mirror's reflection becomes unbearable. We find ourselves in a constant state of apology, apologizing for leaving early, apologizing for being quiet, or apologizing to ourselves for staying too long. Healing this conflict begins with acknowledging that the mirror and the shadow are both valid. You can love people and still find them exhausting. You can crave connection and still need to protect your solitude with a ferocity that looks like anger to the outside world. The hatred you feel for social gatherings is often just the shadow's way of saying, "I am being lost here. Please, take me home." When we stop trying to kill the shadow to please the mirror, we find a third path, a way of being with others that doesn't require us to shatter into 1,000 pieces just to fit into the frame. There is a moment in every social gathering, usually hidden between a lull in conversation and the start of a new song, where the decision is made. It is the turning point. Until this second, you have been a passenger in the evening, carried along by the momentum of social obligation and the fear of causing a ripple. But then, a quiet clarity descends. It is the realization that you have reached the limit of your endurance. In the past, you might have fought this feeling, pushing through the brain fog and the mounting irritation with a sense of grim duty. But the anatomy of a graceful exit begins when you stop viewing your departure as a defeat and start seeing it as a choice. The exit is often preceded by a specific internal ritual. You begin to look for the seams in the room, the gaps in groups where you can slip through unnoticed. You check your phone, not for messages, but for a tether to the world outside these four walls. This is the moment where the mask mentioned in earlier chapters begins to slip. The smile becomes harder to hold, the nodding becomes mechanical. In the psychology of self-regulation, this is known as ego depletion. You have used up your store of willpower to maintain a social facade, and now the raw, tired self is demanding to be let out. To leave is not to abandon the room, it is to return to yourself. For many, the hardest part of the exit is the goodbye. We fear the interrogation, the "why are you leaving so soon?" or the "but the night is just starting." These phrases, though often meant as compliments, feel like hooks pulling you back into the water just as you've reached the shore. However, the turning point occurs when you realize that you do not owe the room an explanation for your capacity. The social contract does not require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The anatomy of the exit is an exercise in boundaries. It is the brave act of saying, "I have given what I can give, and now I must reclaim my energy." There is a profound sense of relief that occurs the moment you step back across the threshold and into the cool, dark air of the outside world. This is the decompression. As the door closes behind you, the wall of noise vanishes, replaced by the rhythmic sound of your own footsteps or the low hum of the city. In this silence, the nervous system begins to recalibrate. The hypervigilance of the biological symphony starts to fade. You can feel your shoulders drop away from your ears. You are no longer an object being observed. You are a subject once again, inhabiting your own life. This realization that you are allowed to leave changes the nature of how you enter rooms in the future. When the exit is no longer a source of shame, the gathering loses its power to imprison you. You begin to understand that hating social gatherings was actually a hatred of feeling trapped. By mastering the anatomy of the exit, you grant yourself the sovereignty to participate on your own terms. You learn that the most important person to say goodbye to isn't the host, but the version of you that felt obligated to stay until the lights went out. You are finally learning how to walk away while your spirit is still intact. Healing does not look like becoming a social butterfly. It does not look like suddenly finding joy in the roar of a crowded room or becoming the person who effortlessly commands a table of 12. Instead, integration is the quiet process of making peace with your own proportions. It is the moment you stop categorizing your social battery as broken and begin to see it as specific. In this stage, the objective is no longer to fix your aversion to gatherings, but to integrate your need for depth and stillness into a world that often demands the opposite. This integration begins with the radical act of selective belonging. For years, you may have operated under the assumption that all social invitations carry equal weight, that to be a good person or a successful adult, you must be accessible to everyone, all the time. Integration is the realization that you are allowed to curate your connections. It is the shift from breadth to depth. You begin to notice that while a room of 30 strangers feels like a sensory assault, a kitchen table with 2 people who truly see you feels like a sanctuary. You stop trying to widen your circle and start deepening the soil within it. In the language of psychology, this is the movement from compliance to agency. When you are in a state of compliance, you attend gatherings because you are afraid of the consequences of absence, the FOMO, the judgment, or the fading of a friendship. When you move into integration, you attend because you have chosen to share a specific piece of yourself. You learn to budget your energy. You might say to yourself, I will go for 2 hours because I value this person, and I will leave before the mask begins to crack. There is no longer a war between the self and the social. There is only a negotiation. True belonging does not require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. A key part of this integration is the honest inventory. You begin to identify the specific triggers that make gatherings unbearable. Is it the lighting? The lack of meaningful topics? The performative nature of the group? By identifying these irritants, you can build a social life that honors your biological and psychological architecture. You might find that you thrive in one-on-one walks, in quiet galleries, or in shared activities where the focus is on a task rather than on the noise of being observed. You are not withdrawing from the world. You are simply finding the terrain where your soul can breathe. Integration also means forgiving the world for being loud. When we are in the depths of social exhaustion, it is easy to become cynical, to view those who enjoy the crowd as shallow or performative. But as we heal, we realize that their ease is simply their own biological rhythm, just as our stillness is ours. We stop being antisocial and become pro-solitude. We find that when we stop fighting the room loses its power to hurt us. We can stand on the perimeter, watching the dance of human connection with a sense of gentle, distant empathy, knowing that we are not required to join the fray to be considered whole. We have finally integrated the truth that being different is not a deficiency, but a different way of being alive. We often speak of the center as the place where life happens, the center of the dance floor, the center of the conversation, the center of the world. But there is a quiet, overlooked beauty in the perimeter. To be the one who stands near the window, or the one who lingers on the edge of the circle, is to possess a perspective that those in the center can never truly know. From the perimeter, you are not just a participant, you are a witness. You see the subtle shifts in the room's energy, the unsaid tensions, and the fleeting moments of genuine connection that often go unnoticed in the noise. You have traded the warmth of the hearth for the clarity of the stars. The journey of understanding why we hate social gatherings ends here, not with a sudden love for parties, but with a profound reverence for our own nature. You are a creature of the edges, and the edges are where the world meets the wild, where the light fades into shadow, and where the most interesting things grow. By accepting your place on the perimeter, you stop being a failed socialite and become a successful observer. You realize that your silence is not an absence of thought, but a sanctuary for it. Your preference for the few over the many is not a sign of a small heart, but of a heart that refuses to be spread thin. The horizon is not a wall, it is a vantage point. Some are meant to dance in the light, and others are meant to hold the space where the light begins. There is a sacredness in the way you return to your own space after the world has asked too much of you. The way you close your front door and lean your back against the wood, listening to the sudden, holy silence of your own life. In that moment, you aren't recovering from a social failure. You are returning to the source. You are like a deep-sea diver reaching the surface, lungs finally filling with the air you were meant to breathe. You belong to the quiet, the slow, and the deep. And in a world that cannot stop talking, your ability to listen to the silence is a rare and radical gift. As this documentary of the self draws to a close, remember that the goal was never to change your no into a yes. The goal was to understand the weight behind your no and to see the dignity within it. You don't hate social gatherings. You love the integrity of your own soul. You love the depth that cannot be found in a 3-minute conversation. You love the peace that cannot be found in a room of 50 people. Go forth then, not with the intention to fit in, but with the courage to stand apart. Seek the few who speak your language, honor the rhythms of your nerves, and never apologize for the beauty of your quiet life.